We're just two crazy guys looking to have a good time here on V'ger Please. A heinous trip at Warp 5. My name is Joseph.
And I'm some unfortunate late season budget constraints. Your co-host, Peter.
Peter, I think that we owe our listeners an urgent breaking update of how your weekend at the Artemis con went. I have not yet heard the story. I will be hearing it for the first time along with our listeners. I'm very excited.
Oh boy. So quick recap. What is Artemis? Artemis is a starship bridge simulator that is like 1980s war games in terms of graphic capability. And the whole point of Artemis is supposed to be to invite your friends over. You hook a computer up to the TV, you get some super low-end laptops together. You get this game going. Each of the 6 computers has a role. So one computer turns into the helm. The other is security, engineering, communications, science, and then you can have a captain. Oh, and tactical, of course. And then the computer hooked up to the TV becomes your main view screen. So each position requires all of the other positions to function correctly. And if you don't have good communication, you're not going to work well. And you run through these little tactical simulations or pre-scripted missions where you're just flying around, scanning ships, and mostly fighting the bad guys. And I first played back in 2011. I had to go and check my fucking Gmail and see what the purchase receipt was when I bought it before it was even on Steam. I've had a lot of fun with it over the years. And it's cool because it kind of seems original series E, but they never really specify with any specific type of language or promotional materials. Like
the serial numbers have been scratched off, essentially.
Yeah, but I mean, you could just as easily pretend it's Battlestar Galactica or pretend it's Babylon 5 or whatever sci-fi property.
Use the terminology of your choice for the role play of being in these positions.
And that was always my attraction to the game. Right. Spoiler alert, the game's fucking awesome. And if you have any ability to get a couple friends together, it is definitely worth it. There's a lot of games out there that have copied the formula. Most notably is the Star Trek Bridge Simulator that Ubisoft made for the Quest and other VR platforms, which has since been abandoned and is in a pretty bad state of disrepair.
Cannot even buy it.
Not on the Quest platform, I don't think. Or maybe it's not on PC. I don't know, whatever. It's hard to do, and it's real buggy. And this game has always been a passion project, and that was clear. And you get a lot of cool community stuff and support from all that. So it's good. It appealed to me because, coming from our LARP background, I saw this thing. I was like, well, fuck, let's get some Star Trek shirts and let's go full immersion with this bitch.
Absolutely.
We're talking about doing like the away team missions with tasers and pain.
You do an away team mission means you just go next door and do a home invasion.
Yeah, go up to the Speedway and get some fucking 40-ounce malt liquors or what have you. So anyways, I have not played this game in forever because as an adult, it is impossible to make time to do anything with my friends if there's more than 2 people involved, and Artemis would take a fair amount of pre-planning and whatever. So, and then you factor in COVID, everything else. So then I found out about this convention that was taking place, and I couldn't even tell you how I found out. Their marketing's not very good. And I put it on the calendar, and I kind of mentioned it to my wife because the guy who makes the game lives up in Cleveland. And I was like, oh, damn, the place we're doing this convention is like literally 15 minutes from my parents' house. I could go up there, I can dump the kids off on them. And if it sucks ass, I can bail. And if it's cool, then, I can have a convention experience because it's been years since I've had one of those. And then I completely forgot about this fucking thing. And it wasn't until my wife's like, well, you're going back up to visit your mom again next week. And I'm like, no, I'm not up. She's, oh, your Star Trek thing. And I was like, fuck. So then I started trying to get...
Your mom is the real away team leader with the kids.
No, my wife was. She's the one that I shared the calendar with, and I was like,
"Well, your wife's just the MVP, trying to make sure you get your full immersion."
Oh, I'm trying to find out if this thing's even going on, and I'm trying to communicate with people, and I'm not hearing anything. I'm like, well, that's not good. And then I was like, well, fuck it. We'll go up. We'll try. Worst thing that happens, I see my mom, whatever. Go up there. I dump the kids off. I head in. I'm wearing my Ryza, how fitting my Ryza t-shirt.
Nice.
Thinking myself very clever Star Trek joke guy, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I go to this hotel and I forget what it was, a Holiday Inn or what's the other H one? Hilton, maybe? I don't know. It's off in this corporate park. I'm going up and I see utility trucks all over the place. I was like, tell me this fucking hotel doesn't have power where they're doing a big video game convention. Sure enough, hotel doesn't have it. I'm like, is this thing even still going? I don't even know who to contact. The banquet center that's attached does. I go in, I get there about 12 o'clock. I walk in, and I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, all right, there's going to be one of two types of people here. There's going to be some real unique convention, Star Trek convention people here.
I love that you took a second to find the right word there, Peter.
Very political.
How gentle. It's very gentle.
Oh, yeah, I like that. Or maybe there's going to be some cool young dudes, people.
Oh, yeah. That's obviously who will be there. Playing a 14-year-old video game or whatever.
You never know, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I walk into this thing. They're on a lunch break, and it is definitely column A. And I'm like, oh, boy, what did I just get into here? And it's been a while since I've been to a convention, and my fortitude's low. And I'm like, oh, my God, I got to bail. This is not going to be my crowd. You're saying, hey, maybe we should go in there and plug the podcast a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't tell you who our target demographic is, but I know none of the people I see there were going to be anywhere near a group of people that would enjoy our take on things.
Yeah, they're not accepting of fun criticism, are they?
Yeah, so I wait around until the lunch break's over, and people start coming back in. I'm like, fuck it, let me get one mission in, do one run on this, at least to justify my drive and the amount of time I've spent waiting around on this thing. If you cut any criticism I have about the average Joe that I encountered at this thing, and sometimes with gaming conventions, you just gotta have to understand, like, I'm a nerd, I'm doing the nerd hobby, I'm gonna be around other nerds, and that's how I'm not going to a fucking Sports Illustrated launch party, right?
Exactly.
You cut any of that type of criticism out. Dude, it was so fucking cool, the shit they were doing with this game.
Because these guys are into it. So they're probably like, they have the deep tech.
Dude, and I divorced myself from like my elitism. I think that's the right way. That's what I've been accused of in gaming circles, my elitism. I saw some guys, I'm trying to crew up, right? And most people, they come down with a bridge. And that means that they've brought their own collection of computers, and it's like little troops, if you'll call them that. And they're doing cool shit, man. There's costuming, and each crew is costumed different. And they'll like dress their bridges up with like different accoutrements. Some of these guys are like civil engineers, electrical engineers. So they've got all sorts of like shit that the program is putting off as a side effect, becomes special effects like red alert sirens and all this other stuff going off. I saw some guys in some real crisp white naval uniforms with red highlights and the fucking the Terran Empire
nice
patch on the side. They were Canadian. I was like, oh fuck. Well, if you guys are repping evil, then
can I get in on this? Yeah,
man. I think we'll merge. So I was on the Oshawa, the TSN, the Terran Space Navy Oshawa.
I love it. Okay.
There was a Nomad. There was a Normandy. There was the Normandy. Maybe I'll throw some of these pictures up I took, which again, if you just look at these pictures, you're going to say, this looks like a flea market. What the hell's going on? But like, if you understand what's really going on, this guy custom mapped all these sliders, buttons. Like, it looks like legit, like a hybrid between original series and like Mass Effect lighting. Real cool. So what they're doing, I thought it was just going to be a bunch of people playing individual games. No, this whole thing's fucking networked. The game can run, each server can support 6 ships. They've got a galaxy map, and they're running a war campaign. So there's all this lore, none of which I know.
Shit. Like, this is intense. So they're all in the same map. There's like PvP potential.
No, not even the same map. It's not PvP. So they're running 6 servers. Each server is a separate sector of space.
Okay.
And then in the middle of the room, they've got 6 galaxy maps set up. And it's like, LED lighting and stuff. And then they've got 3D printed ship models all over the place. there's an admiralty that was selected out of the player base. So the admiralty is deciding what ships are going to be in what sectors on what missions. And what's happening is like the limitation on the engine right now is there's a 6 ship maximum per server, and each server is its own map layout. So you would like what would happen was you'd be going to war with whatever, you'd deplete the resources on your ship, fire off all your torpedoes, use all your energy, and then you have to fly into the next star base one sector over to refill. So you would fly to the edge of the map, and then the captain of your ship would have to run up to the game masters with a pink slip that represented your ship. Then everybody would log off the server, log on to the server to the south, pick up whatever their ship placeholder is there, fly, do the resupply, get jumped, whatever, fly back in, and the GMs, this whole thing's being game mastered. The storylines being like actually babysat by dudes over in the server room. They'd resupply your ship, like reset the stats, and you'd go on, right? So because
this is intense. Go on, yeah.
Each, and I'm sorry for anybody who could give a shit.
No. Anyone who's fucking listening to this show knows that this is cool. Let's just be real. Continue.
So any occupied space that there's an active enemy presence, not generating money. But if you have a stranglehold on the sector, now that sector is generating money for you. And as ships get blown up, the admiralty has to pick what they're going to replace it with, and the ships have a cost value. So there's like this war currency, and that's why everybody's not, flying around in like the heavy duty battle cruisers. You got people scraping by in scouts and fucking mine layers and stuff, right? So now take the bitchy nerd element, right?
Of course. Yeah.
I get on the Oshawa. These guys, these Terran dudes, and they've got like 3D printed cutlasses, like sabers.
They're all in. They're all in on evil space navy.
Well, they came down from Ontario, right? And I'm like, all right, cool. So I think the furthest person was like San Francisco. So again, we our former hobby of LARP, like we had people all over the world.
Oh, sure, that would happen.
I'm used to it, but it's still good to see it out there too. And a side note, and I'm sure none of these people are ever going to hear this or whatever, but I've put on a lot of conventions. I've played in a lot of conventions. I understand like what goes in and how easy it is just to say, no, we're not going to bother doing that. So there are all these fan-made movies playing in the background, like these media centers, right?
Mm-hmm.
With like production quality, like there's like haha bad, and then there's like oof bad, right? And this is like
cringe bad, yeah.
Bad. But it's there, and it's fleshing out the story that the past 5 conventions have kind of like crafted, right? And again, it's so easy just to not do that and let whatever, you just have it be a fucking piece of paper. Being able to like kind of watch along, as bad as the acting is, like it becomes endearing, and I'm buying into it, right? Because I like this stuff. And like after big battles and stuff that we're going through, they had pre-recorded news bursts that would go out to like flesh the story. So that was really cool. So they're doing like all this cool stuff that I'm just eating up with a spoon. And then you take my favorite passion, which is bitchy bureaucracy, right? Because now I come into this, and the dudes from the Oshawa, which I'm getting crewed up on, are already hot because they had a nice warship. No, they were in a mine layer, and they were deploying a minefield per the directive of the Admiralty. And then these guys over in the Normandy who have like the good battle cruiser come flying through their firing line, trigger all the mines, blow up all the ships in the area. They lose a ton of money. And then these guys are livid that they give the Normandy another battle cruiser and stick these guys in like some fucking little scout poop ship.
Of course.
So they're stink about that. And then like I said, when you're moving the ships between sectors, there's these pink slips that are like deeds, but that's like what they're, I don't know. So someone hand wrote a bunch of stuff on one of them. It wasn't our captain. Nobody knows who did it, but like they got in trouble. So there's like this rabid fight between some weirdo admiral and a walker who looks like George R.R. Martin, basically.
Okay.
And then like this Terran captain, but he's Canadian, so he's like real nice, but I could tell he's pissed. And I'm like, man, these guys are like getting fucking hot over some handwriting on a pink slip, like this is the stuff I'm here for. It's like the real
The
conflict.
trauma. You could
Oh
smelt
yeah.
it out. Oh yeah.
So, we're stuck in these little dinky ships. I don't know who's cock blocking us out of the good ships, but like we're just wrecking ass. And I will definitely go back to the next one. And the whole time we're playing too, I'm like, man, I could get away with murder here. If I got my crew together and
Oh
we
God.
brought our brand of bullshit, and I'm like talking to my friends at
If you got the Blackguard together to do,
no, fuck that, dude. We're gonna go in. I think it's gonna be me, James, maybe Nate. We're gonna do. I think we're gonna say that we're convicts, that we're let out.
you're a penal ship.
No, we're a colony of cannibals that were let out.
You're reavers.
And that we were gonna like anytime like a ship surrenders, get on like the intership comms and be like real pushy, reminding people that like terms of our participation in this was exclusive salvage on organic components. We get a bunch of like Halloween novelty, like severed arms and skulls, and just Herogen our little bridge up as much as possible, so it just
Absolutely
looks like
have a stew of unknown origin.
blood smears all over those pink slips. Because like some of it wasn't exclusively. Oh, and so this was like what really sold me on it was they were using live action components, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was I don't know, some fucking the Avorians, Argosians. I don't know. You know me in names. Anyways, there was a piece of cord that disintegrated, and a friendly faction turned hostile on us across the galaxy, except for one starbase deep in our territory turned neutral instead of hostile. So they were going to investigate it. They sent our ship in to go and speak with the princess of whatever. It was supposed to be our ship doing the negotiations. Then we were just supposed to be security. Then we were just going to be securing the adjacent sector. Or so they were told, and they got back from lunch and they're like, no, you're doing the actual diplomacy. And the guy's like, well, I didn't read the whole packet. I don't know the lore. And they're like, well, you better do something good. Because
I didn't get the brief.
Because if you do good on the diplomacy with this, it's going to bring an entire neutral faction to friendly, and this NPC faction is going to like fight alongside. So we went in person and met with a staff member that was in costume and like negotiated it. And I was like, you throw a little bit of live action stuff in like that, and I'm fucking sold.
When you went to do the away mission to do the diplomacy, did you all bring Glocks and like immediately
They
point?
had their 3D printed sabers, and the
that's
guy
right.
had his hand on it, ready to go. Right, so it's these two dudes wearing like these crisp white, nice Terran Empire fucking naval uniforms, and I'm there in flip flops, shorts, and a fucking Ryza t-shirt. And they're like, well, it just, play secure. So I'm like back there doing my best IL, like smoldering catching this lady. I had a fucking blast. This thing went all day. I started playing like 12. I think they started at 7. I was there till 11 o'clock when we finally like won the war. And then also too, it's like the video game component. So like they're throwing world eaters at people, and like we're cheesing the system to like get them to chase us and go over these minefields or drop. I don't know. Just a lot of fun. I had a fucking blast. I was not ready. It was like Warhammer level campaign narrative and like GM manipulation. I had a fucking blast. Really good time.
It sounds awesome.
That
sounds like some shit I would enjoy.
Yeah, good times.
Is Strange New Worlds also a good time?
Joe, I have a confession to make.
What's that?
I, as a long-term Star Trek fan, cannot tell you what I want out of a Star Trek show anymore. I don't know. Like I'm sitting there, and I already talked about episode 1. Episode 2 was fucking miserable. I don't know who out there in our listener base is like keen on this thing, but like I figured if nothing else, my wife would be into it maybe. So I didn't like tell her, hey, this is the bad one or anything. We're going through and like about the point where she's singing a song to communicate with the egg. And my wife's like, this feels like someone in high school won a contest and was able to submit a script.
That's exactly what I thought when I saw it. Exactly. Like
my 5-year-old daughter really enjoyed that part. But that episode was trash.
It's the most cartoonishly juvenile writing I think I've ever seen
And I
on
had to ask
television.
myself, why, if you're really trying to buy back traditional audience, why is this episode number 2? Episode 3 is the one where we find out that number 1 is a mutant.
Correct.
Not to be confused with Mystique. This is a genetically engineered mutant. Here's my observations, and I'm going to keep going on it. But the biggest criticism that I'm going to levy against Strange New Worlds is the pacing is awful. They are trying to fit so much into each episode that they are just racing through several different plot threads at the speed of light. They're making colossal leaps of logic, and they're solving ridiculous plot with even more ridiculous solutions to the point where I'm not even bothering to follow it in my head. It's just I'm watching pretty things on the screen, and then the breakneck speed of the plot will come to a screeching halt as we deploy whatever the tragic backstory of the week is going to be.
Yeah, and everyone has a tragic backstory too, and Lon has
Everybody.
2 of them. It's
Everybody
too
has
much.
a tragic backstory, and this is
Yeah.
not the Cerritos of Lower Decks, and this is not Voyager, a ship being sent out on a bounty hunting mission. This is Enterprise. This is the flagship of the Federation, and you're telling me that nobody figured out that the Doctor has his Victor Freeze, Mr. Freeze plot line going in the background with his daughter caught in the pattern buffer?
Yeah,
And that
that one is the most egregious to me. That and the fact they gave Lon 2 tragic backstories.
which one's Lon?
The security chief.
Dude, I get such drummer vibes off of her from Expanse, which again, I know you don't know, but every time I see her, I'm like, oh, fuck, that's drummer from Expanse. It's not. Yeah, she seems like she's got a lot of baggage. Uhura, they even managed, not only is she a child prodigy, but also, my parents died in a space car accident. Pike's obviously got some pretty cool stuff going on.
Yeah, like his tragic backstory is actually the only one that I feel like is earned, right? Like there's something really cool about that one. It's not a tragic backstory, it's a tragic future to which he is privy. And he has
the
to
real
deal with that.
tragedy is Spock's sideburns.
Here I thought his hair was so much better in Strange New Worlds.
His hair is much better, but these like Sharpie squiggle obtenebrit tentacles going down the side of his face, ridiculous. I notice also that Pike does not come up with any ideas on his own. Everything is something someone else suggested, and then he goes, I like that, let's do it, which is cool to see some of that leadership, but also he may as well be Dr. Samuel Beckett. Like Scott Bakula leapt into his body, doesn't know the first thing about pirating a starship, and has just figured out the code. Like, if I'm just nice and approachable, everybody will do my job for me. But the sets look great. I do enjoy the upbeat nature.
Episodes 4, 5, and 6 is a much better stretch. You get the sub hunt episode, then you get the shore leave episode, and then the one after that is when Pike does a little bit more dealing with his tragic future. And you get an interesting story with him having to interface with very strange alien culture. Plot twist is a little obvious, but still neat.
I will continue on it. And again, it's interesting to look at the first 3 episodes here, the criticisms I have for it. And I think it's because we've already had a taste of Pike that I'm not in my mind processing this as season 1 of a show.
Right. He's already established. Spock in number 1 to a degree as well.
And you already know what the Enterprise is. You're just meeting a bunch of new crew members. But to think of like comparing that to Voyager or Enterprise, like I'm aware of how unfair I'm being to them. Like, how do you know a show by your 3rd episode?
I think there's an inborn suspicion that we have because Star Trek had been so thoroughly abused by Kurtzman and company for years up to this point that you shouldn't beat yourself up for looking at something that's, for the first time in a long time, watchable and be like, I don't know, this is still a little off. Because it is. It's not perfect. when I gave it a B, it was because there's some episodes were clear A's and some episodes that were cleared fucking C minuses, and it's just balanced out that in the end I felt like it was above average, but it didn't find like a nice median, like spot to be in. It was either just very good or very kind of shit.
Well, that's what's really interested me has been my wife's reaction to all of this. A lot of new Trek, I think, has been designed for a different viewership base. And again, she
and before you tell me, I don't know if I ever mentioned it to you directly, but when I was watching it, I even said to Stevie, like, I don't know if Peter would like it, but I'm pretty sure Casey would. And I would be, and I'm interested for what you're about to say about what her reaction is.
Season 1 of Discovery, we were both into it. And that's why I continued watching into like season 2 was because she had such a good reaction to season 1 until season 2 just got the stuff we would complain about, like she was picking up on too. And I'm like, all right, it's not just like the nerd in me. She bailed on Picard super early on. But yeah, like so far, Strange New Worlds, it hasn't clicked. And like I said, like her observation on, just how goofy and bad the script had been. I was like, all right, well, it's interesting seeing these outside viewpoints and not just being, jaded old Trekker me.
Well, as jaded old Trekkers, it is our obligation 27 minutes into this episode to start reviewing an episode of Star Trek. Fortunately, it's a pretty simple one. So we'll probably finish this up in an hour still.
Half a page of notes.
Yeah. What do we review?
Season 1, episode 25. 2 days, 2 nights. This is the second to last episode of the season, right?
It is.
And this is what they're doing.
Listen, it's not bad. It's just cheap as shit. You pointed out last week. This feels like they've been super duper cheap, very inexpensive. And sure enough, here in the Memory Alpha, we find out that we interpreted correctly what was going on. They were out of money, probably because they spent it all on the premiere. And so they couldn't do very much with this whole episode. So we had like 4 sets, and that was it. And they were not extravagant.
No, one set's primary feature is actually a patio dinette set that my father-in-law has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think every father-in-law has to own that by statute. Yeah.
The frosted glass table inlaid into a steel frame. This is first aired the 15th of May 2002. Teleplay by Chris Black. Story by Rick Berman and Bran Braga. Directed by Old Worf himself, Michael Dorn. They stick the TNG cast directors. No, I take that back. This Roxanne Dawson also got a poopy one. They're not treating them well. I'm almost wondering if there were regrets that so many of the former cast members had gotten into directing and like they try to sabotage it to get these guys to dip out.
Like we need to bring in people who have more seasoned television directing experience, not the uplifted series regulars that we gave opportunities to.
I don't understand it.
I think this episode's still fine. I mean, it's not great, but it has enough going on continuity wise. It's pretty funny.
This would be a fine episode if we didn't have the track record bringing us to this point that we have had. If this came in after a couple pretty good episodes, sure, but just going through a trench of dog shit. And even if I'm to give you, what was Clancy of Arabia? What was that one? Desert Crossing.
Yeah.
Even if I'm to just focus in on the good parts of that, we're still not coming out of the strongest pedigree of episodes. So I agree. This isn't bad, but
I get what you're saying is that we have to have something firm to recover from the cum monster. And we've just kind of had medium rather than something actually good after that, like 5 episodes of just misery. And so it's hard to like see it as something, better than really what it is.
Well, let's talk for a second because I'm thinking on the car ride in about this episode And then I'm thinking about season 1 as a whole, and this will be really a better conversation for the rip, but off the top of my head, I cannot tell you what my favorite episode this season has been. And I can't say that like, oh, it's neck and neck between 2 or 3 episodes. Like I can't tell you any episode that I was really fond of. I think maybe I can say what was the one with the Vulcan explorers?
Fusion.
Fusion. Like there was some interesting stuff in that one that's fresh in my memory. And past that, man, like I'll shoot from the hip. Like what's your favorite episode this season?
For me, it would be between the Andorian incident and Broken Bow. Like the premiere, very good, set the tone, did a lot correct. Probably one of the best premieres of Star Trek, period. And then the Andorian incident, you had Jeffrey Combs. Yeah, we're adding more something interesting going on with the galaxy. Humans kind of get in the middle of this fight between Andorians and Vulcans. What are the Vulcans about? What are the Andorians about? We internally start the Archer just loves getting head wounds thing then. So it would be between the two of them, I think.
Andorian incident popped up in my mind as well. And even that is like so heavily riddled with sophomoric nonsense that I can't even say that was a great episode. That did a lot of cool shit. There was a lot of cool world building in there. It's not great. And I can sit here and I can probably go through season 1 of Voyager and pull some real gems out of there. It's certainly not Eye of the Needle.
Or, gosh, like, think of Jetrel for a second, because that's a season 1 episode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Jetrel.
With strong parallels to Dean Stockwell's Puzzle Dungeon.
And Jetrel was an episode that wasn't among our favorites of the season. That, we criticized that the episode sort of like posed Neelix in this weird position where he had to be redeemed for not wanting to go fight in a war, and he had like this personal, I didn't sign up. I was a coward. I went AWOL, and like then all of my people died, like it was his fucking fault or something. And it was like that didn't quite pay off. And then, the weakest shit award was born from the end of it. So it was like very awkwardly written, almost famously so 200 episodes later, I would say, for us.
Mm.
And yet, as much as that was not super warmly received on our part, and it had a lot of major flaws, it's probably better than 2/3 of the episodes of this series that we've watched so far, right?
I'd put it way higher than 2/3.
I could maybe pick out 5 or 6 episodes of Enterprise that I would say were at or above Jetrel.
Well, let's put that on the to-do list for the season 1 rip for Enterprise, is to compare and contrast Enterprise season 1 to Voyager season 1, especially when we're picking our favorite and the worst episodes, because these are two properties that come from the same neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Their parents are at the same income level, and nobody has any excuses because
same fucking people making it.
Same people making it. Peak Star Trek power. Mm-hmm. Money's there. Writing talent should have been there. And really compare these things, because I believe that by the end, Enterprise will be good. I'm seeing it already connect dots in ways that Voyager refused to, and the payoffs, specifically in this episode, they touch on some cool.
Yeah, it's like, and imagine how good this show can be when it figures itself out, right? Which it ultimately does.
Right. So I believe it'll get there. But for season 1 of something that should have had the table set with the finest china and the best silverware, this has just been a fucking garbage season. And it is inexcusable. And I don't blame anybody out there listening who said, I gave up on Enterprise season 1.
You can see why this season of Star Trek, this one specifically, killed Star Trek on broadcast television. Like, this show never recovered from its first season, no matter how good it got. And it did get dramatically better. But when you come out of the gate with something this bad, you don't come back from that. And sure enough, Star Trek died for a generation on television, and you can probably say it was season 1 of Enterprise's fault.
And you can say it's justified too.
Yeah, and yeah, having watched it, yeah, it's pretty fucking bad. This, not terrible. I laughed. And let's get into those laughs, because guess what? Our boys finally made it to Planet Fucktown. They're here. They're on Ryza. And
they're so excited that they're getting back into the shuttle the right way. They're going down through the nose cones again. None of this side door business. They're doing things the right way to party it up. We find out that the crew cannot all enjoy shore leave, so they've had to draw straws, and the people who get the good straws get to go get hand jobs down on the surface, and everybody else has to hang her up on the ship and hope that they don't get snared into another cum monster attack.
The entire main cast, of course, aside from DePaul and Phlox, happen to be the people who got the straws. We get a little quick little introduction here. You know, Archer feels a little self-conscious, but, you know, gets talked into going anyway. And, you know, the main cast is all on a shuttlecraft going down. Phlox is apparently going to hibernate because, as he noted, his species does not sleep.
Really?
The same way that that humans do. They have to go through
That
annual
explains it. Now that you say that, is that's how he lives with himself for his terrible decisions to condemn an entire planet to super cancer.
He's only has to face the moral reckoning of that once a year,
and he does that through getting drugged.
Yeah. And, you know, it's, as we found out in this episode, he is having terrible nightmares in this time, but, you know, it's limited. So he's willing just to accept it.
God, if they had him wake up from his hibernation cycle earlier, crying about the Menox or whatever they are, the Vulcarians, was that what they were?
I was just remember them as the sensible sweaters.
That might have been the best moment of Star Trek history.
For us, it would be the most gratifying for you and I.
Able to put that above Best of Both Worlds.
I think I would have at least ranked it above the time that Naomi Wildman mentioned that Tuvix happened.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That was also amazing.
Absolutely.
But this is the last time also we see Crewman Cutler. So rest in peace to the actress. This is her final appearance. We kind of was ashamed because she's, you know, she's got a lot of charm and the character is very vibrant in her hands. And I could see why the creators intended to do more with her in the second season. You know, just get a taste of like, this is somebody that's just got a different vibe and has that sort of plucky can-do attitude, but also kind of sarcastic. Like, oh yeah, this could be a recurring character for sure. Like I like Cutler, and this is it. This is unfortunately the end of the road.
Rough, man.
It is rough. You know, rest in peace. I mean, sometimes.
Speaking of rough, Jonathan Archer's civilian wardrobe purchased exclusively from Costco.
Listen, he's wearing peak performance gear, which is to say, the simplest things possible.
He's got this fucking nylon poet shirt, rain poncho thing. It's not a good look.
No.
Nobody's got a good look except for maybe Hoshi. You got Trip wearing his Gilligan's Island Hawaiian shirt.
Well, let's hold off for a second here before we go into their. Let's talk about what they go down to the planet to do. Archer has rented a villa. He's going to chill on his beautiful villa. He's going to read a book or two, just hang out, relax. Hoshi's like, I just want to like talk to people and learn some languages the old-fashioned way. Now you have to use my translator because that's like my fucking job, and I'm getting real tired of relying on the computer to do it for me. Which is like, okay, cool. Mayweather's like, I'm gonna climb rocks because rocks are like my personality, which is to say, featureless. And then you've got fucking Malcolm Reed and Trip Tucker, and holy shit,
who have both, because of their bungling around on Shuttle Pod 1, have discovered that they are both hoe bags.
They like to fuck around. And they are like, we are going to go to a nightclub and score with some alien chicks. It is literally their their goal in life. And I don't know what it is about Reed, but he comes off as so fucking creepy when he like talks about like his intentions of like, yes, we're gonna go to the nightclub and we're gonna see if we can get lucky. Trip's got that southern charm. It's like disarming. But fucking Reed, you're like, holy shit! Do not let this man near your drinks. Like, the vibe is not good here. The vibe is weird. And like Hoshi like talks shit to them. Like, really, this is it. You're just so obsessed with fucking you two. Holy crap!
Well, we've been out in space for 10 months and we're due. I get it.
I get it, but I do like that. Like everyone's trying to like be idealistic, except for these two who are like, no, we're taking it to fucktown. This is the planet for it.
You feel like talking about space economy?
Not yet, but like the outfits are interesting because you were about to say that. Like Reed and Trip are in their very best Night at the Roxbury gear when they show up to that fucking nightclub, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like straight out of the sketch. Like you said, Archer's in the most sensible middle-aged man clothing possible.
He's got more beige on than I knew could be included in one outfit.
We don't see much of Mayweather because he just is in his rock climbing gear.
Thank God.
And then like Hoshi is in like stereotypical like beachwear, kind of like crop top with like a like wraparound skirt for bathing suit or whatever the fuck she's
First time
on.
we've seen her with her hair down, I think.
Yeah, and like she looks like she's appropriately garbed for a beach vacation. Like she could be in Hilton Head with that look. You know what I mean? She's the only one that's. Oh, I take that back. It's also Archer's age-appropriate love interest. It's also similarly garbed to Hoshi.
Yeah, her.
He's very excited about this.
So they go down. We pick up on Archer coming into his little bungalow or whatever it is. How many, Horganas? How many Horgana icons were you able to count this episode? Because it was on all the liquor barrels. It was like the light switch back plates. Is it Horgana or Horgoth?
Horgon, I believe. Horgon, yeah. And yeah, I thought this was supposed to be like a covert thing. And you like, because it was like a proclamation of your sexual prowess, correct?
Mm-hmm. No, this thing treats it like Kenner toy lines treat the bat symbol, and just any Batman related toy or vehicle is just plastered in iconography.
Well, the show is very horny, so it kind of makes sense in a weird way, right?
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, or, maybe that's just they were able to clean up the brand a little bit by the time Jean-Luc rolled around there, and this is them trying to figure things out. Early Ryza was rife with inappropriate uses of the Horgon and crime.
So Tucker and Reed get to the nightclub, and they are like two sexy guys looking for a sexy time. Although they are delicately playing the game of no homo, trying to make sure they don't hit on any dudes.
Oh yeah, there was even
very 2000.
Even a bar about pronouns in there too. If only they would have known the political.
20 years later, the danger they were gonna have if they would make those jokes. Holy shit!
Lucky for them, this isn't playing anywhere. Otherwise, we'd be looking at a series cancellation.
And we see Hoshi like at dinner. And she's striking up conversations with a couple Ryzens, and she's learning the
let's
language.
Talk about these fucking budget cuts on this episode. Like, none of the sets really stood out as especially ass. Like, you go back to the Skeevians and how bad Town Square was. It wasn't Prime Directives? What was that episode called? Or was it Prime Directives?
I forget the name of the Skeevians episode. I just remember.
But we really shit on like how bad the Town Square where everything was taking place was. Like, none of the sets are really that level of shitty. And there's a couple matte paintings they throw in. I don't know how much of this is like Michael
or digital
Dorn's
backgrounds. I don't know if some of this might have been green screen.
It looks beautiful. I love me a good tropical vista. But the fucking costuming in this, to the point you're going to tell me that Ryzens are regular humans, not even with like a little prosthetic piece of shit, not even the fucking Sharpie squiggles of Desert Crossing. We resorted to a fucking sticker.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to believe that sticker is like a a bone ridge or something organic, or are we just going to call it what it is? And that's just a circular sticker with a doodle on it pressed into between
It looked
people's eyes.
embarrassing. It looked like some shit you'd see in a fan movie. You know?
Not even that. It looks like they were like, all right, all the people are going to be Ryzens. We're going to put a sticker on your head. So the guy's going through doing CG, to put like dripping lava on here. Or when costuming comes through, they're going to know the people to grab to drag out. Like, holy fuck.
Hoshi is speaking to these sticker people and has learned their language, with which they are very impressed. And then like some suave Italian alien. I don't know. It's like if you've ever seen a movie about going on a European vacation or been on a European vacation yourself, this is that guy. He shows up. He starts talking to Hoshi, and he's got some fucking complicated ass language, so they're hitting it off. And then we see the captain in his villa, and he sees below a dog, another dog, because he's brought Porthos.
The
Porthos.
ugliest dog to ever be in Star Trek, I think.
I mean, if you're gonna pick a dog to be a weird alien dog, a Chinese crested is the correct choice, which is what that dog is. He's not an attractive animal, right? But that is what they look like. And of course, its owner is, as mentioned, an age-appropriate love interest for Jonathan Archer. A woman we will find out is named Keela.
Keela will come across Archer's path a few times. She doesn't exactly come on strong, but about the 16th or so time they interact, she starts warming up to him.
Keela gives him her dog winds up on his porch somehow, probably because it's got like fucking wings and fangs or some shit.
No, it's clearly that this is all a big ruse, so I'm going to go ahead and assume that she just
tossed
picked
it up
that
there.
fucking dog up and like Olympic discus spun around and launched that motherfucker.
But this species of alien dog is like made of rubber or something, so it survived.
Maybe her mission is so important that inside of her bedroom it's like a puppy mill and there's like dozens of these dogs just identical, and she had to throw like 6 or 7 at his balcony before she finally landed one. Like, had Archer looked down below his bungalow, he'd just see like down in the rocks by the beach just a graveyard of dead dogs.
Yeah, but somehow her dog gets up there, and then so that gives her the excuse to be like, hello, look at me, I'm in my sexy, beach wear. Let's take some small talk, but I'll play a little hard to get and tell you to go to this, boat to enjoy seafood, which actually kind of sounded dope.
Yeah, sounds lovely. I'd love to see the scene.
No, you're gonna get 37 on that one, bud.
That's right.
Ain't no fucking money for that.
3-7, skip. So real quick, because now he's eating dinner, everything else. Enterprise shows up at Ryza. Archer's got what looks like a very nice, expensive bungalow. These guys are down drinking on the surface.
Yes, the space economy thing. I did promise you this.
So do they just have like an American Express black card on the ship? And in a rare turn of events, Archer calls Admiral Force and asks for permission before he does something and says, hey, it's been 10 months. Can I go get my dudes wet here or what? And he's like, yeah, put it on the company expense. I mean, that has to be it, right? Rise is not just letting everybody in this beautiful paradise free of charge.
One assumes there was a trade of some kind. Or like maybe Ryza, because their exports tourism, right? Like Ryza is a pleasure planet. Ryza is a place you go to enjoy yourself. Okay. Well, if I'm going to be a planet that exists to do this, I need 2 things. Imports of raw materials to make the machine work the way I need it to work, and I need protection. I need friendly species who understand the value of having a place like this who are willing to come to my defense, right?
Yeah, you don't want the space spider people coming and cocooning and pumping juices out of it. You want to be the one pumping juices out of visitors, not those goddamn space spiders.
Unless they want to pay to have a villa. We're not above that. So what I suspect you could assume in the background is maybe like a contact via long range communication. Say, hey, we would like to visit. And if you're the Ryzen authorities, and there's like this new planet, and they've got ships, and they go warp 5, and they're like, you know what? Let's extend an olive branch. You're like, yeah, sure, we can hook you up with some, hook you up with like an expense account.
You know what? We haven't
Here's
actually
some
read our
hotel
emails yet
rooms.
about all the war crimes that Enterprise is engaged in. We don't know about you guys. Yeah, we'll give you a fair shake. I like your idea that maybe Ryza knows what's up and they smell something bigger. Archer will even tell Blonde Lady, this is the furthest out that humans have ever been. They are the new, like, most
And
people don't even know what they are.
and that's probably impressive to them, right? Like, well, if you guys have made it out this far, why not make a good first impression, right?
The local Ryzen government's probably like, God, look at these guys. Like, they don't even wear stupid stickers on their head. Like, these might be
Fucking smart
geniuses.
dudes. Yeah.
Wow.
And then, maybe they make a trade for like, hey, send us some warp plasma or something like that. Some nominal amount of like goods exchange
We've got some
to fund it.
pretty kinky districts. Like, if you could maybe put us in contact with like copious amounts of cum.
Yeah. Do you
a
know
lot
of
of
any
that.
local cum monsters? We have people who are into that. Like, a whole planet of cum monsters? That's what
We'll
we
have to
needed.
go nuke that. We've actually been looking for that place. We heard about it. It's a fierce rival of Ryza, and now if you could give us the coordinates, we will go
The
nuke that thing.
Ryzen battle fleet will ride to glory.
We will nuke the cum planet from orbit so they will never compete with us again, and the Ryzen Pleasure Cartel will rest secure as the premier cum destination of the Alpha Quadrant.
But we don't. The episode spends not a second trying to explore this.
That would have been
And
fucking sweet.
I actually kind of understand why, though, because the economics of Star Trek is its worst fucking trait, right?
Right up there with the
timeline,
situations regarding World War III. Yes.
Yeah, like it's a mess, and it's probably way too hard to try and make sense of. And you'd spend the whole fucking episode having to backtrack around how it works, and then you've got all of this lore, and you don't know how much you're contradicting. So how much of that do you want to fucking go into when you could just not talk about it, right? Like,
Well, you
Archer
say
built,
that,
how? We're not going to say.
but then if I go back to Vox, Sola, or Detain, or which one was Oasis? Oh, that was a fucking good waste of Odo. I don't know. I think there's a couple episodes here I'd be willing to drop off the map for a good economics episode. But no, I get it. And I support the sentiment you have that some things are... I can't blame the writers for not wanting to step in that pile of dog shit.
Speaking of piles of dog shit, unfortunately for Trip and for Reed, when they finally seem to attract the attention of two comely lasses here in Planet Nightclub, they are in for a rude awakening.
Super hot. Normally, to see women this attractive in Trek, where it involves some sort of Ferengi hustler
or calisthenics being done by the
True.
Counselor Troy and Dr. Crusher.
Sure. But yeah, these two would be perfectly at home in some sort of a Ferengi episode. So
underboob for days.
Mm-hmm. Trip and Reed, they're talking. I'll agree with you. Nothing Reed does this episode isn't at all endearing. And I will be curious to see where they go with Reed in season 2, because season 1 has not been kind to him. They finally start... I forget who lays out the seeds, but they're like, hey, there's underground gardens. You should go check them out with us. And they're like, yeah, let's go. And they take him down into the basement of the bar. And then what I thought was going to be like, hey, here's our... what kind of space money do you guys use? What valuables do you have? And I was like, oh, wow, they've been talking to hookers. How funny.
No, thieves.
Shape-shifting thieves.
Who they're interested in what kind of money they have, to which they are very upset when they find out they don't have any at all. And so they just stun them and tie them up and take their clothes and fuck off.
These guys kind of look like Remans, I thought. Like super ugly dudes.
There was another moment of no homo, of course, when they're like, oh no, we were hitting on dudes the entire time.
Mm.
And it's 2002.
Mm-hmm.
They can't get away from it.
Nope. Nor can they get away with any opportunity to strip the main crew down to their underwear and tie them up. Yeah, I'm going to say that's a fetish for somebody, is people tied up in their underwear specifically.
Back to back. Again. There's a pull in between them this time, but still back to back.
Yeah, guess that no homo's going out the window.
We do have a D plot, and the D plot is that Mayweather falls off the rocks.
How good would it have been if Mayweather would have died in this episode?
We have to go back. He's like, and he fell off the rocks. He's dead. Oh.
No. He fell off the rocks, then gets a painkiller that has an allergic reaction.
And then he dies horribly. So he falls off the rocks. He wants to get out of this alien hospital, gets a shuttlecraft sent down for him. When he comes back up, Cutler's there and starts scanning him like, why the fuck did you ask for, like, don't think we could, fix your freaking busted leg or whatever?
Zero sympathy out of DePaul, by the way.
Yeah. He's like, have you ever been in an alien hospital? And DePaul says, yes, in San Francisco. You fuck. What am I? Come on, man. Cutler discovers he's not breathing well. He's having an allergic reaction to something. And as they treat him in the sick bay, it's getting worse. And they're like, we need to wake up Phlox. I am underqualified to deal with a genuine medical emergency. And that means we've got to wake up the boss, which they have a protocol for, but they're like, oh, I don't fucking know about this.
So Phlox wants to be zonked out for 48 hours. And he says, if you need to, wake me up, but make sure you really need to. And it's interesting, too, because it's Cutler pushing back on the idea of waking Phlox up. Or no, I'm sorry, it's DePaul that's hesitant to wake up Phlox. And finally,
it's Cutler. Cutler's the one who's like, I'm not sure about this. And DePaul's like, are you sure you got the dosage right? Tries to put it on her. She's like, all right, fine, fuck. That's how that scene went.
I think it's the initial desire to wake up Phlox DePaul's hesitant on. And then by that point, she's resolved herself. But, again, I'm getting flashes of the EMH and Tom Paris. And is it smart to be the furthest out? I mean, for all intents and purposes, Enterprise is Voyager. They are far, far, far from home. I don't know, man. I think having a second doctor would not have been the worst idea. And I keep thinking about, who was the doctor of Enterprise supposed to be, and how salty is he that he just got, fucking flicked out of the place that he was supposed to have, making history in the books of humanity.
By a mass murdering doctor.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Awful. But they play that up for laughs, right? That they wake him up and he's in the middle of some kind of dream and he's delirious. The whole bit plays pretty well where he's slowly trying to figure out what's going on, and Cutler and T'Pol have to guide him.
For all intents and purposes, he's drunk or high.
Yeah.
And Mayweather's laying on the table, very afraid that his life now rests in the hands of someone who is calling everybody captain and does not know how to turn on a
scanner
and is trying to put out orders to go to other solar systems to collect fresh space slugs. How many times did you laugh?
The initial scene in the nightclub, because it was so gratuitous. Phlox is waking up in his horrid dream, because I forgot that was a thing, right? Where he's like, I don't care what it tastes like. He's just clearly having some sort of very vivid dream. And he comes out of it still talking about it. Those were the two genuine laughs I got out of the episode.
So you disagree with Rick Berman as describing it as very funny?
I think he thinks it was very funny.
Years later, Bran Braga characterized this episode as a boring one, about which he rhetorically asked, who cares? Well, Bran, I'm with you. None of this humor fucking hit in the right place for me. Maybe the shape-shifting moment where they get... And that's only because I thought they were going to be hookers. yeah, a lot of this episode's played up for laughs.
The gay panic stuff is also really funny, but it's like in retrospect.
So, burning through these plot lines pretty quick here. Reed and Tripp spend their entire trip tied up in the booze cellar of a nightclub and eventually have to shame walk themselves back to the shuttle landing zone in their underwear.
It smells reeking of booze that they use to like a bottle to cut up the ropes that you never see.
Mhm.
And
Strike out completely. As contrasted by Hoshi, who did not
yes,
go there looking for love and instead spends night 2 in her new Italian friend's bungalow.
I mean the flirty energy continues in their next scene, and he makes a move on her, and she's receptive, and so he's like, "All right, let's do this, bud. You've earned it." You stayed up all night speaking your space Italian at me. We're gonna bang now. Let's go. You know.
We already talked about, unfortunately, Mayweather did not die. So
No,
that's going to leave.
he was successfully treated by drunk vlogs.
Boo. And that leaves us with Archer. So
Mm-hmm.
Archer and the blonde lady, who I initially heavily criticized for being an awful actress and boring and stiff and rigid, which I will afford the episode the immersion that she acts weird and bad because it is a person, it's a double agent who is actually acting, and that is not their forte, in an attempt to manipulate Jonathan Archer. Archer will tell her a lot about himself. They go on a couple dates, they're hanging out, they're spending a lot of time, and then finally Archer's like, I don't know anything about you. You know all the stuff about me, but you haven't said a single thing about you. And then she lays on the table, well, I don't want to sour the mood. And he's like, oh, come on. And she's like, yeah, my entire family died at the hands of the Suluban. And Archer's like, ooh.
Oh man, okay. Maybe you were right. I didn't want to ask this question.
Archer's like, oh shit, I hope it wasn't any of those people I just sprung out of the pokey. That would be real awkward.
The backstory we end up getting is that she's got this information. It feels very specific. She knows a lot. Archer's very hesitant to talk to her about things, and then he ends up surreptitiously scanning her with his tricorder, and
She gets real pushy.
she does.
Like,
She wants
she
to know
brings up the
more.
Suluban thing once. They kind of talk about it. And then Archer's busting out the wine because it looks like he's trying to get a little
He's trying
deeper
to
in
get
the game
lucky.
with,
He's trying to score.
and she just completely loses her cool. And she's like, tell me what you know about the Suluban. Do you know that they take their orders from the future? And the Cabal, where are their helixes? Like, complete zeros, natural 1 on that diplomacy check. Or
So
whether they gather information or diplomacy.
gather information, bluff maybe. Regardless, critical failure. Archer is drawn into naturally trying to figure out who the fuck she is, and that's when you get a little bit of interesting backstory, which is she is not the species she appears to be, which I guess was kind of Trill like with
That's
like
what I was thinking
spots.
at first, too, like
And
cheetah
yeah,
snake stripes on her.
but she's actually Tandaran, which may sound familiar to you because that's the same species as Dean Stockwell, the people who are at war with the Sulaban. And that suddenly tracks very closely with what we heard from the Tandarans about how they're a bunch of dangerous psychos who are out there fucking marauding in the galaxy, which is kind of what she's relating of like, everyone knows these things because the fucking Sulaban are out there fucking causing havoc and murdering people everywhere. And that is why, of course, she is deeply interested in what Jonathan Archer has to say, because he is a wanted man by the Tandarans after doing the jailbreak.
Funny choices are being made here. Archer calls up to Enterprise and says, I've got bioscans. I need you to run them through the database. Confirm my suspicions. So theoretically, T'Pol should know that the captain is now being like CIA'd by the Tandarans, which I would think maybe there should have been some security people hiding in the closet or other common sense, suitable, reasonable things when your fucking captain, as you just put it, is now basically a fucking war criminal
Mm-hmm.
who led a prison break and openly attacked the Tandarans. None of that's there. Archer has her come back from whatever and basically says, I know you're a Tandaran. Did Colonel Grat, name checks Dean Stockwell. Did he send you? And basically calls her story bullshit, which I'm sure we will find out or should be inferred that like probably this lady's family did really die. They don't establish if she's a government agent or if she is just
Yeah,
a
she could be a
rich.
civilian. She could be private investigator. She could be an agent of the state. They do not specify any of that.
I would have thought that she would have been a little bit more hostile, or there would have been some venom because by the end, like he goes to like kind of grab her hand and be like, "Hey, the jig is up," and then she like hits him with the poison claw attack that knocks him down. She
It's
doesn't
lucky it
seem.
wasn't one of the fucking Kmart Klingons poison tip attacks that
Oh,
fucking
those
kills you.
Kazon ones, yeah, his ass would have been gone. No plot armor is going to protect you from that. So she doesn't really seem to bear him any ill will, and if anything, she seems to still like him
Regretful.
and regret
Yeah.
doing it. So I don't think that she is maybe aware of what he has done to the government detainment facility.
Okay, so you're saying he may not be a wanted man so much as just happen to be a good source of information. I would say that seems unlikely given how she happened to be right next to his
I'm
villa.
saying that I don't think she is necessarily a government agent. Do they ever bring her up again?
No,
So this is a one and done. That's
one
very
and done.
interesting for Enterprise, which has had a really good track record. Like when they name check Grat and you find out that she's a Tandaran, again, you can take shitty episodes like Detainment, and Detainment's had two payoffs now. One was in Desert Crossing when Clancy Brown found or sought out Archer because of his actions. It was another good callback here. But she's clearly on a mission. I think it's her own agenda. My headcanon on her family's rich. Her family did in fact die to a Suluban terrorist attack, a Kabbalah terrorist attack, and that she's on her own revenge plot line and has sought out Archer. And even though Archer should be a enemy or a wanted individual by the Tendaran government, she does not care about that. He's just someone with information, and she has sought him out. And over the course of flirting, saw that he's not the shittiest person and feels bad about what she's doing. Because I think if he was a wanted man and she did have access to just drag him off and fly him back in.
Yeah, she would have fucking done it, right? There's no
So
reason not to.
that's sad that we never really find out more about her. Not that she's an especially compelling character, but it is.
It's an interesting note of continuity that felt very earned and correct, right? Like, yeah, we already know that Archer's known for the jailbreak thanks to last week. So, like, now, of course, the counterparty to the jailbreak was interested more in what the fuck was going on. Like, there's a lot there that made a lot of sense.
I like the idea of things happening in stories that are not main plot.
Mm-hmm.
The main plot of the detention
Makes it
facility and
makes makes it
whatever.
feel lived in.
Right. Just, you're playing Skyrim and you get a note in the mail, fuck you. I still remember you killed my husband. I hope you rot in hell. Like, oh yeah, that happened.
Or the emails that you get when you're playing Mass Effect from like
Yeah.
little side characters from the prior
This was a
games. We're like,
very
hey, I
massive.
heard you're alive. Great. I'm glad to hear it, Commander Shepard. Thanks so much for helping me out 2 games ago.
That's exactly what I would call this. It's a Mass Effect moment where there is some sort of ongoing effects felt ripples after things happen. It's not the clean reset of Voyager, where even the most detrimental or major changes are immediately forgotten in the next episode. So the real shocker in this episode is by the end, everybody gets together. I get Hoshi keeping her mouth shut that she hooked up. Like, sure. But the chief engineer and the security chief not mentioning a goddamn thing about how they were both gunned down in the basement of a nightclub, or that Archer was poisoned and interrogated by potentially Tendaran agents to
I,
anybody.
that I guess you're supposed to accept that no one wanted to like out that they had an embarrassing vacation. That like only Hoshi, freshly fucked, is got a smile on her face, right? Like
I get if it's like,
that's the
all right,
joke. Everyone's like
you and
they
I we're off on vacation at Ryza, and I get so drunk that I pass out in the cabin and piss myself. I get that that's just a little secret that stays between you and me. Yeah, we both got fucking shot in the chest. I got interrogated by someone who we conducted a fucking ill-advised jailbreak. In fact, last week I had people fucking shooting artillery at me trying to kill me because of that thing. Hey, continuing consequences. I almost died and this lady fucking drugged me. I had less of an adverse reaction to being drugged, knocked out from a fucking stab attack than Mayweather got from medicine.
But hey, Hoshi
I'm
nailed
zipping
some
my lips.
space Italian guy. So
Hey, what happens on Ryza stays on Ryza, even if it's like fucking Guantanamo Bay shit. Whatever. Ba-bum, bum, ba-bum. Roll the credits.
What are we watching next week, Peter?
This fucking TV show, man. This is killing me. Season 1, episode 26. Shockwave, part 1.
Mm-hmm.
Is this a two-parter?
It is a season finale cliffhanger.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Starfleet orders Enterprise to return home when the crew seemingly causes the destruction of an alien planet. However, a visit from crewman Daniels leads Archer to believe that the disaster was the plot of one of the factions from the temporal Cold War. If only Jonathan Archer had used one of the 5 previous opportunities to learn more about the temporal war and the players and be more prepared for this stuff.
No, instead he had to be mad about internment camps, Peter. That's much more important.
Yes.
But nothing is more important to us than our fans. Thank you for listening to V'ger Please. Heinous Trip at Warp 5. We'll see you again next week.